Hello and welcome to my Autism Ally podcast, where we come together to share helpful information about autism. This series will be going over special education in Indiana. We're going to speak with a variety of professionals that can help you in your journey as you navigate your options for your child. This episode, we're going to speak with Nicole Hicks, Regional Program Specialist from INSOURCE, Indiana's Parent Training and Information Center. We're going to be discussing where and how to get started in the special education system in a public school setting, and how to get your child supports they need to be successful. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Susan.
So let's get started with kind of the obvious question. What is INSOURCE?
So I work for INSOURCE. INSOURCE is Indiana's Parent Training Center. We help support families with the special education process. We're granted by the Department of Education, but we are independent. We help families with we can support them in the IEP process, the 504 process. We can help by providing telephone support, trainings online. We provide Zoom meetings. We can do just about anything that is going to meet their needs.
Great. Is there a charge for that for families?
None of our services are at fee, so everything is free that we provide.
Our favorite four-letter word. What is special education in the state of Indiana, and who is eligible?
So special education is specifically designed instruction that's provided to a student who has been determined eligible through that educational evaluation eligibility criteria. And we'll go over some of that. To be found eligible for special education, the student has to be evaluated, and they have to have either a developmental delay or have a disability that has an impairment that adversely affects the student's educational performance, and they need special education or related services. Who is eligible is once the family has suspect that there's a disability that is impeding in their education, they ask for an educational evaluation.
So how does the family ask for that? Because there is a procedure for that.
Yep. So the process begins by a parent or actually anybody from the school can make what's called a referral to the school. Once they believe that there's a suspected disability, they make a referral to do an educational evaluation. Those referrals can be, when they make that referral, I just want to highlight the fact that there are 13 different categories that they can suspect, and those are under Article 7. You can suspect one or more. So when they make that referral and they ask for that educational evaluation, it's important for families to know which suspected categories that they are suspecting, so then they can request that category to be tested. Because when a parent just says, I think they need an IEP, they might not be specific enough to catch what category that they're suspecting. So the evaluation is not all inclusive. Right? It's they're going to only test what categories that they're suspecting.
Okay, I'm going to throw a question in here that we didn't prep you for, but because Nicole is so awesome, I know she's going to be able to handle it. So if your child is, let's say, 2.5, and you're going into this process, if you were in first steps would help you with all of these referrals. So if you are not in first steps and you suspect a disability, you're reaching out to the special education department? Is that how that's working?
Yeah, you can reach out to your school district, your home school district. You can reach out to the special education administration, wherever your co-op is through. And then they usually, it depends on the age, because obviously you're not eligible until you're age 3. But yes, you can, before they turn 3, request that educational evaluation.
Okay.
I want to add, it's always good to put that request in writing, not just a phone call. So then there is evidence of that request.
Great. And maybe we'll mention it later. How do I find out if my child is eligible?
So once you have requested that educational evaluation for those suspected eligibility categories, the school will have you sign a consent form if they agree to conduct that evaluation. It's important for families to know that a school does have the right to deny that educational evaluation. If they deny that educational evaluation request, the parent may ask the school to participate in mediation or request due process right off. Okay? If they agree that they will conduct that educational evaluation, then consent is obtained. The consent form is very important for families to know about, because if there is no consent form, so someone has said, yes, I will conduct it, and then the consent form is forgotten or not sent out to that family, there is no law that I can point to for that timeline just for them to receive that consent form. So it's important for families to hear a yes, then get a consent form and return that. The sooner they do that, your timeline will start. That timeline is a 50 instructional day timeline for the school to collect data, assess, and meet. And then we'll talk about that meeting in a second. But the evaluation will consist of a multidisciplinary team that is going to gather data from teachers, from parents, from anyone who who knows that student in the educational setting, and then they will formulate their summary of what all the data has been gathered for a case conference to decide if that student is eligible.
You mentioned that the school's going to get information from families and going to get information from teachers, but if my child's not in school yet, how are they going to collect that information?
So the younger the years, sometimes that can be parents going to do some surveys. It can be any childcare. If they go to any childcare, it can be First Steps, it can be Head Start, anyone who that child has seen. If they also receive any early interventions from therapists like OT, PT, or speech therapists, they can also ask for data to be filled, a questionnaire survey to be filled out by them as well to add to the data. But sometimes they might not have a lot of data to add.
Okay. And they have 50 days to do that. And it's based on, just to kind of re-emphasize this for families, they have 50 days from the time that the parent signs the paperwork. So it's important, once you get the paperwork, to sign it, get submitted so that you can start the clock.
And it's actually 50 instructional days. So if it's in April and you sign that consent, through the summer or any time that there are no instructional days, those days do not count towards that 50 days. It's 50 instructional days.
So who does the testing of my child? You say qualified professionals. Who is that in the school setting?
Yeah, so the school uses a multidisciplinary team. Those are a group of qualified professionals who conduct the educational evaluation. It must include a teacher licensed in or other specialist with knowledge in that area of suspected disability. The team also must include a general education teacher, a school psychologist, a speech language pathologist, or other qualified professionals based on the student's unique needs of those suspected disabilities. I also want to highlight that the parent plays an important role with that multidisciplinary team by providing input and information about that student as well.
Okay, great. I kind of wanted to chat a little bit with you about how an educational evaluation is different from a medical diagnosis. So especially for our kiddos with autism. Can you talk a little bit about how you could have a medical diagnosis of autism, but you may not educationally qualify for services?
Yeah, remember when we talked earlier, we said that to be eligible for special education, that student has to have a disability that adversely affects their educational performance. And again, their performance is not only academic, but functional skills. But because some of our kiddos who are on the spectrum might be higher functioning enough that their skills are not impeding in their education. You can have a medical diagnosis, but those skill deficits are not impeding in their educational performance. That is how that could happen.
Okay. And so I just kind of want to stress out there, as being a parent myself, Nicole is a parent of a child with a disability, that it is really, really important to access school services, but it is equally, perhaps even more important, to be getting that medical diagnosis and be getting services outside of the school. An educational evaluation is not going to get you access to outpatient services and therapy for the autism world, ABA, speech or OT, nor is it going to get you services through the state Family Supports Waiver Program. For those, you are going to need to have a medical diagnosis. So if you have any questions about the difference about that, or where to obtain a medical diagnosis, please reach out to us at My Autism Ally. We would be happy to direct you to professionals that can do that medical diagnosis for your loved one on the spectrum. So, Nicole, next question. We've done this evaluation, so now we have results. What are they going to do with them?
Okay, so your school is going to call you to come to schedule a case conference committee meeting. And so what I want to highlight is, one, the rule says that that meeting alone has to be mutually agreed upon date and time. Sometimes I get a call and a parent will say the school already arranged one. It's at this time and this date. I can't really go. I'm not sure what to do. Again, the parent does have a right to participate, and it's important for those parents to go. So make sure that you are using your rights of mutually agreed upon date and time. But once one is scheduled, a case conference is scheduled, you will meet and review all the data that was collected for that educational evaluation. If the parent disagrees with the educational evaluation for some reason, the parent may request an independent educational evaluation to be conducted at a public expense. But at that meeting, the whole team collectively will decide whether that student has met the criteria to be found eligible. And parents are equal party to that decision.
I'm just going to make a suggestion for those of you who are listening out there. Don't go to one of these meetings alone, especially if it's your first one. The school is going to have at least 4 or 5 other people at that table. And if you're new to this process, this can be highly intimidating. Just bring a friend, bring your spouse, bring your mom, whoever it is, somebody else that's got another set of ears. Hey, you can even call INSOURCE, and maybe you can get Nicole, Sam, any one of the wonderfully knowledgeable people that work there to be another set of ears that can help you understand what's going on. What happens if my child is not eligible for special education?
So if you come to the table as a committee and the data is assessed, again, if you're collectively, the data does not present that they do not meet the criteria, the parent can, 1, ask for an IEE if they disagree with that data, or 2, they can continue to gather data for future educational evaluations. Because if they're not found eligible, then because they didn't meet the criteria, you might need to either wait until maybe they're in school, right, for that 3, if they're very young. Maybe there's not enough data to be found eligible yet. So keep gathering data, keep assessing how they're doing in school. But if they're not found eligible, another option is, in addition to continue to gather that data, is if they do have a medical diagnosis and they do start school, you can look to see if maybe some simple accommodations under a 504 could be beneficial.
Okay. So what happens if my child is found eligible for special education, but I do not agree?
Well, this is a tough one for me, because if they're found eligible and a parent just simply does not want them to, a lot of times I see that they just don't want them labeled. I try to encourage those families to look at it as not a label, but an access to interventions. All kids are going to get interventions in school, right? For what, for to meet their needs. But those with special education are going to meet their unique needs over and above the general education student. So it could just be some early interventions that are going to get them their skills taught to them over and above. And then maybe they can get reassessed later to find out if their levels have balanced with their peers, and they might not need special education forever and ever and ever. But I would kind of, if they do meet the criteria for meeting that they are found eligible for special education, I would encourage that parent to really consider the need for those early interventions that can be so beneficial.
And I completely agree with you, Nicole. Usually it is a fear on the parent's part about their child being labeled. I don't want my kid to have a label. And unfortunately, labels are how we treat, but that's how we treat every medical condition there is out there. We treat cancer patients based on their diagnosis of cancer. We treat people with diabetes with their label of diabetes. We can't pursue those much needed interventions without being able to put a name to what we're treating. So it is really not any different than treating something that you would want to treat if your child had a serious illness. If your child was sick, really sick, you wouldn't hesitate to get medical treatment for them. It's so important to intervene when kids are young, because as we all know, because we're parents of children who are now adults with disabilities, the challenges don't get any easier. The challenges just get more and more difficult.
Right. And I do want to encourage families that if they can get eligibility, to get them those early interventions, because, the evidence shows that early interventions are key. It's just very important. We can make up some skills, and so they're not struggling as much ongoing into school if we can teach them some basic interventions early.
Yeah, completely agree. My child has been found eligible for special education, and I agree. What's going to happen next?
So what happens after you get together with your committee, you all agree collectively that they are eligible. Your committee then will start what's called an IEP, or that individual education plan process. Your committee will design how we're going to meet those unique needs of that individual. So the actual plan, which is the IEP, will be written.
And yep, Nicole, you are absolutely right. That IEP meeting is going to be something you're going to be doing frequently over your child's school career, and it deserves its own podcast episode. So hold on tight and join us for our next podcast episode with Nicole Hicks at INSOURCE, where we talk about what is an IEP and what you can expect at an IEP meeting. Did you know that April is Autism Awareness Month? Well, My Autism Ally is going to celebrate with our Cruisin' for Acceptance event on Sunday, April 25th from 1 to 4 p.m. Glenbrook Square is hosting this year's unique COVID-19 conscious event outdoors in the Carson's parking lot. And instead of walking together, we will drive together to show our autism acceptance. We will travel through Fort Wayne in our decorated cars, spreading awareness and showing our enthusiasm, love, and acceptance for those affected by autism. The parade starts at 2 p.m. We'll observe all traffic laws and ask that you decorate your vehicle so it's safe for you and all your fellow travelers. The event will also include a vendor fair, music, and other COVID-friendly activities. Even though this is an outdoor event, we require all participants to wear a mask and maintain social distancing guidelines for the safety of our disability population. You can also participate with us in a contactless way by just driving with us. You determine what your comfort level is in regards to your interaction with others during this event. The event is open to the public and free, but hey, donations are always accepted. It's kind of how we pay for things, like support groups and this podcast you're listening to. Sponsorships and vendor space options are also available. Go to our website at myautismally.org and contact us for more information.
This next segment, you may be an autism parent if.
You might be an autism parent if anything in their closet is khakis or the same, right? Or the same clothing options all week long.
If you would like to submit a You May Be an Autism Parent If, please call us at 260-207-4686 and leave us a message. Maybe you'll be on our next podcast.
Thanks for listening. Please stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, and sign up for our newsletter at myautismally.org. Talk with you next time at the My Autism Ally podcast.